Now going to Old Country, which is what you were actually filming, the whole of the Old Country series. So what do you remember about being Stoke? Because that was quite something you probably hadn't done much before being a studio cameraman.
Exactly, yes. Well, I'd never been a studio cameraman. And also it was electronic, so video. And I had not much experience of video at all at that stage. We were shooting on film. Although I think we had just started doing some news on video at that time, and we had a small OB vehicle that was provided. I guess you were doing that.
Yes, we hired it in.
Yeah, but again, that was fairly new technology as well, and so we had 2 engineers with it, and we ended up calling the main engineer there, Malcolm 1 volt, because he said that every video picture had to contain at least 1 volt, i.e. a peak white.
Yeah.
And we were trying to say, but if there isn't a white in the picture, why have we got to have a peak white? Oh, it's got to have a peak white in it. So we had a real struggle to get the set to look dark, or dark enough.
Can you explain a little bit about the set? Because, of course, a lot of people think it was his shed. And of course, it wasn't his shed at all.
Yeah. Well, it was just a set. And so the set was set up on the stage in Stoke Village Hall. And we lit it. I couldn't see out the windows. I don't know if it had anything. I think there might have been some sort of vague, shadowy branches or something.
Yes, I think they put branches and a bit of tracing paper on the back.
Yeah, so it was sort of a bit fuzzy and so on. And that's where we used to do it. And there was various bits of this shed. So it was only like 3 walls with no roof, and that's how we had to do it.
That went on. We used to do that for 4 weeks, so it was quite a tough on him and also on you, I should think.
Yes, because we had to travel there every day, which wasn't too bad. It was quite useful. And initially it was, yes, we used to do it in November, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
So it's 4 weeks in November for the whole crew. And then later on, I think Jack decided that it would be better to do it 2 and 2. So I think we changed to doing it 2 weeks in the...
He used to have a caravan there, though, didn't he? And have a little sleep, I think, at times.
Yes.
Certainly in the latter ones, I'm sure he had a caravan.
Yeah.
Because when he was getting older, it was pretty tough on him, actually, I should think.
Yes, I mean, doing it day after day, because, I mean, that's how it worked, you know. The films were... He'd do his introduction in the set, and then they would play a film in, and he would talk over the film. Very, very rarely did he do any retakes. You know, there was just he didn't get it wrong. He just got it right.
And no script at all.
No script at all. It was all in his head.
Yeah.
And again, then he was working to time, so he had a floor manager telling him, you know, a minute to go, 30 seconds to go, because there was a bit of leeway, you know, but you're not talking very much leeway. So you had to be the right length for the program, you know, so 27 minutes or whatever it was in those times when they had shorter adverts.
I don't know if we used to do it on those films, but certainly at Southern Television, if you look at programs that were recorded at Southern Television or shot on film, you'll see little dots that were the out dots, Q dots we used to put on the end.
Oh yes.
So people could see it, and I think if you just watch those, you'll occasionally see them. I can't remember. We probably did put Q dots on just so everyone would know that we were really coming to the end, and that was the time we had to get out into the titles. And
so,
and of course, you had that amazing caption machine.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a roller machine. I mean, it was a proper professional roller machine. It was a bit ancient, and it had black paper on, and it had all the captions done in Letraset. In those days, that's the way. And then and it had to be turned on its side because they crawled across the screen.
At the bottom, I've forgotten that.
Yeah,
I had forgotten about that.
Yes, I can remember that machine. And I I think Peter Phillips, who worked with us, and in fact edited the second series, I think he did all the letter set for it, and you literally have to put all the letters on and space them out all correctly for all the people on it.
Gosh, and then it was all recorded onto 1-inch reel-to-reel video.
Yeah. Well, it was done originally on beta.
Was it?
I think, and then we made a 1-inch master from the beta. The problem was that the budget was fairly tight on it, and to actually get a 1-inch machine in to actually do that final thing, I think was, or if we had maybe had one 1-inch machine which we then transferred to beta, because the film had all been put onto beta anyway, to feed in.
To feed in,
that was
I see.
Fed in from
beta, was it?
From beta, yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, there were interesting days with him there. And then, of course, after the end of Old Country, there was a little break, and the story that Jack was given the whole of the out-of-town library from Southern Television, which I'm not sure whether he moved it to his other place first or he moved it to here. Then he decided he was going to make some programmes. Now, just to sort of explain that situation, of course, they didn't have the studio bits in.
No.
Because Southern Television had never kept the whole programmes as a programme. So something had to be done, and then you were phoned again.
Yes, well, I got him, Jack called me again. And this time he had moved to Raven Cottage, I think before the end of the series of Old Country. I think he actually moved at that time, can't quite remember. And he'd had this shed built at Raven Cottage, and he was going to use that as his real, well, it is his real shed. So for the first time, we actually did the studio links, as it were, in a real shed, in his real shed. And so what happened then was they recorded the commentary of his films, and he'd do a little batch at a time. So he'd do several, and then he would work out what he was going to say to introduce each one.
So he didn't do the talk over the film here?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, right, okay.
I think he did that elsewhere. So I think he went and did that, so that they were already done. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's how it worked.
No, it's quite possible, yeah.
Yeah, and then, so here we just did the links in between. So he'd just do his intro and talk about whatever he wanted to talk about, and then introduce the film. And then, same, if there was another film to introduce, he'd introduce that, and then the other one, he would come and say, cheerio. Yeah. That would be the end of that.
And they, of course, were all out-of-town programmes. There was no Old Country in those. They were all the out-of-town programmes that had been going on for years and years.
Yes, all the films that he had shot with Stan Breyer over many, many years.
Did you ever meet Stan?
I don't think I did. I might have once met him at Southern TV years ago.
He was a lovely man. He was a great inventor.
Yes. Oh yes.
Whenever Jack needed something done, Stan would actually invent it.
Yeah.
If needs be, he'd redesign lenses and put boxes of lenses together.
Yes, so I think they did a lot of sea fishing together.
Yeah.
And so I think he had some things that he used to put on the camera to save it from getting too wet. And the other thing about some of those films, you'd see that sometimes Jack's got a beard and sometimes he hasn't. And he said once that...
it's actually, I'd noticed that.
Yeah, he said that when he got to a certain age, he decided he'd grow a beard because then he wouldn't change.
All right.
So he could get older without
looking any different.
Yeah. So that's...
He had a field out the back, which was or he has a field out the back, which is a paddock.
Yeah.
And I understand you had a nice little story about that once.
Well, just that we were here filming, and we went outside for a break, and we sort of noticed there was a foal in the field, you see, and somebody said to Jack, "Oh, so you've got a nice foal in the field, you see?" And he said, "Oh God, that wasn't there this morning." So off he went. I don't know if it was his horse or if it was But it was certainly, you know, a big horse. It wasn't a pony.
Right.
It was definitely a sort of thoroughbred looking horse that was there. Quite
so did he have a number of horses out there, or was it?
No, I don't think so. There was only one. Well,
Yeah.
only one I remember, maybe two.
Yeah.
But I'd
Because
say
Ghost
most of his.
appeared in a lot of the Old Country, the titles he was walking.
Yes, that was
fields.
That was Jack's idea, that he wanted each program to start with him coming from a distance,
Right.
so that he would appear, you know, at a distance and then come closer, and then usually go past camera, and then you would mix into him in the studio. That was it, or in the studio mostly.
And they were all shot specially as
Yes.
titles.
Yes, they were.
You went out for a day to do.
No, we went out for a day. What we used to do again with Jeff and Sue, his wife, the carts and the ponies were all loaded up and we used to go around to various locations. We might have done more than one in a day, but we went to different places. You know, we went to the Shaftesbury Drove above Shaftesbury to do one, I remember.
There's a pond. We went to it. There was a pond.
Oh yeah, there's that's Ashmore, I think. Mm-hmm. Ashmore has got a dew pond, a circular dew pond. So we went there. Again, it's not far from here. And we went, there was another field of poppies, I think. Mm-hmm. That was in a cart though, I think.
And that's when he comes down the hill through a gate and then goes past.
That's probably another Drove road at the bottom of Shaftesbury Drove.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was all locations that Jack had worked out and sought and you know, planned really. Mm. Well, I do remember him saying the horse that features most, was it a white horse?
Yes, it was called Ghost.
Pony? Ghost.
Ghost. Mm.
And as he was leading it, he quite often used to bite his arm. I mean, not too hard, but it would just sort of, you know, nip things that we did.
They must be lovely memories, aren't they, to have?
Well, I liked him. I got on with him. Mm. And, you know, people have said to me, you know, he was a miserable old bugger, you know, he wouldn't ever talk to people. And he was never like that as far as I knew. You know, people would stop and he would talk to them. And much to my frustration sometimes, because we'd be trying to film something and the weather might be changing, and he'd be busy chatting to somebody who'd come along, you know, and, "Well, hello, Mr. Hargreaves, how are you?" And he'd have a chat with them.
You probably got used to that with me. When I was directing, I'd go off and chat to people.
Yes, well, that's it, you know. And then the rain had come, and crikey. But he was never that. He never, you know, brushed anybody off at all, as I remember. And the same with, he never professed to be an expert on everything, but he knew an expert. Mm. You know, he said, "Well, I don't know how to do it, but I know somebody who does." Mm. And he would go and do it. You know, although he was an extremely good fisherman, fly fisherman. He liked fly fishing. He wasn't so keen on coarse fishing. But his vegetable garden was lovely. You know, I mean, when we used to meet up, he used to meet at 10 because he'd spent 2 hours in the garden. So he used to spend his first 2 hours in the garden. We'd meet for 10, have coffee, go off and do the story, quite often involving a stop for lunch in the pub, and then carry on, and then he'd get back, you know, 4 or 5 in the evening, and he'd be back in his garden again until dusk.
How did he actually talk about subjects?
Well, when he used to make the film, we used to shoot the film, and he would make sure that we got the aspects of that he was interested in, and he would then go back and, I don't know, you know, he would watch the film after you'd edited it, and then he would talk it through. In the Mearnstoke case, he'd be doing that live, like he did in
well, he did in Out of Town. So, yeah.
And the thing I always noticed about him was that he would talk around the subject. Mm-hmm. So the film would be running in the background and he would be talking, but he wouldn't always be referring to what was on the screen. And occasionally he would come back to what was on the screen, and then he would wander off and talk about another aspect that wasn't necessarily being shown or could have been shown earlier. So he wouldn't be so specific about what he was talking about at the time it was being shot, or not shot, but shown.
Yeah.
And so it was more of a talk with certain points of interest that he would refer to, as opposed to being like now where it's very precise, you know, when they talk about the a certain bird that you might see, you know, you'll see that bird in super duper close up right away. And he never actually wanted super duper close-ups of birds or animals. What he wanted was to give the viewer what it looks like to the eye, without the binoculars and without the bird hide, and you know, his idea of...
Well, of course, this is... He was the same about the sound. This is why he didn't want sound on the programmes at all. I mean, in fact, I can remember at Southern Television, I'd spent hours and hours and hours on them because I'd find the swallow sound or the whatever sound, and I'd put them all on and I'd lay them all, and they're all little tiny single bits of film, because we were film, and then we had all these tracks, and then I'd go in the studio and he'd say, I want all the sound turned down. So you'd never hear it, all this work. I mean, it possibly took me 2 or 3 days to actually do this, because I thought, oh, it's got to be good. And then he just turned the sound down, because he said that it was a dream. As far as he was concerned, Out of Town was a dream, and people could imagine those sounds. They didn't need those sounds to be told. No,
and that's the other thing. I mean, people have said to me, why did you never interview people? And he said, because this programme is my view of it. I'm not going to seek other people's view of what they think of what's happening. This is my view of what's happening. Yeah. And this is my telling of the story as I see it.
And of course, the magic I think about it was the way he could talk about a subject as though he, like you, had never seen it before.
Yes. Well, I mean,
that was the wonderful thing. You know, he'd go, oh, look, I think he's going to catch a fish.
Oh, yes.
Oh, he's caught a fish. Yeah. And so it's a complete surprise to him.
Yeah. One plan, yes. We did. He was just a good. I think a lady, one of the gypsy ladies, once said to him, he said, "Oh well, Jack, you tell a good yarn," and she meant it. And as you know,
If you enjoyed this program, please subscribe and don't forget to click on the bell if you want to be notified when more videos are available. In part 1, Steve and I talk about what it was like to film with Jack on location. Steve also introduces us to many of the subjects and people he filmed for the Old Country series. And if you would like to buy the complete Old Country series of 60 programs, please go to the link in the description below.